Hi, my name is Russ Daniels. I'm the CTO for the Enterprise Services business at HP. I intended to be with you there this week, but unfortunately civic duties intervened. I have to be on jury duty in San Francisco this week, so I wasn't able to attend. But I wanted to take a few moments to talk with you a bit about innovation in the cloud, what our perspectives are, and to provide a simple framework that I've been using with customers to help to reason about what's going on in the alternative. When people say that word, cloud, it's so difficult to know what they mean that it makes it very difficult then to figure out how to act, what actions to take, how to make it practical, and where we should go. So what we've found is that you have to step down to another level. You have to be more specific about exactly what people are expecting and where they're trying to go. So when we say that, when I talk about not wanting to use that cloud phrase too much, don't misunderstand. We think there's something deep and fundamental going on that has huge implications for the technology industry and also for the industries that we serve. So from that, let me provide a simple framework that we've used to try to distinguish a couple of different things that people tend to mean when they talk about the cloud. So I have a simple 2x2 to start with, and the left column I'll label on-premise. So the idea here is that the customer owns the data centers, the customer owns the compute capacity, the customer owns the software licenses, and the customer owns the operational responsibilities for all of that stuff. So that's in the left column. On the right column is off-premise, where a third-party service provider takes some to all of those responsibilities. And of course, the world's more complex than simply black or white or 2x2. And so there's a lot of possibilities in that, from simple co-location through a complete complex managed service. And so we put all of those kinds of activities where there's a third-party service provider into this right column. And the lower column I'll label dedicated. The concept here is that the compute capacity, the server, storage, network capacity that's used to host a particular application is constructed and assembled in a form and bound to that application so that changing any of that requires manual action. And the complexity and expense of making those kinds of changes typically outweighs the potential benefit. And so you tend to, once you build things in that environment, leave them alone. And the top row I'll label shared. The idea here is that by using a combination of automation technologies and virtualization technologies, you can pool those compute resources, the server, storage, and network, and then be able to bind workloads to that capacity dynamically and adjust those bindings as business needs dictate. So with that simple framework, you can then walk through the quadrants. The lower left quadrant is the way that much computing has been done to this point, where in your environments, you build up your own systems to host specific applications. It's not a bad thing. It's actually quite good, specifically where you have an application workload that's mission critical, that if that application doesn't run, then your business doesn't work. You can't book revenue, you can't generate products, you can't execute the fundamental expectations that your organization has. And by running in these kind of environments, you have the ability to twist and tune all the knobs to make sure that that workload works optimally. And that's the advantage. The disadvantage is that because you can twist and tune all those knobs, you'll do it even where the workloads, the applications that you're hosting, aren't mission critical. And as a result, you create more complexity that creates and generates very significant expense. So that's the lower left. The lower right means that a service provider takes over and uses those same kinds of approaches, but delivers those capabilities for you rather than you having to do it yourself. So traditional outsourcing would be in this lower right box. And again, where you have the need for those kinds of mission-critical capabilities, this kind of delivery model can allow you those benefits, but allow you not to have to understand and deal with all the complexities and the costs and risks associated. The upper left quadrant is what some people refer to as private clouds, but what the industry's been talking about for years as, in one form or another, as utility computing. The idea that you can take all of that compute capacity and, again, treat as a pool of resources that you can use flexibly. And we've been working with our customers for years. We've talked about it as adaptive infrastructure. More recently, we now talk about it as converged infrastructure. And we think that it's a huge value and allows you to take those workloads that were important but not critical, that were expensive to run here, and instead run them here at lower cost with more speed, agility, flexibility in your delivery. And then finally, the upper right quadrant is where a third-party service provider takes advantage of those same kinds of technologies and uses it to provide you with infrastructure services in some on-demand format. So where you only have to pay for the infrastructure resources that you're using them while you use them. One more thing to mention, I labeled this as dedicated and this is shared, but those are really technology considerations that mask what we think is more important to understand when you think about this. A better way to understand what's going on is this world, if you were to put it in the terms that we'd use in the manufacturing world, this is the world of build to order. Build to order means that every service that you deliver in the process of delivering, there's an integrated design step. So design is integral to everything that you do. And that means that you're constantly having to redesign. And the auto manufacturing industry, initially every car was done in a build-to-order way. But over time, they standardized the cars and the way they were being built, and then moved to what we refer to as, in the manufacturing world, as configure-to-order, where pre-existing designs that express some degree of variability, of customizability, can be instantiated in a highly automated way. That's exactly what's happening when you think about moving from this world of delivery to this world of delivery. We're moving from bespoke design, custom tailoring, to buying off the shelf with some degree of customization that allows you to have lower costs and be able to get that suit much more quickly. Since I'm not a consultant, I can break the rule of a 2x2 and I can add a third row. And it has that same distinction. You can do these things inside your own environment, or it could be a third-party provider. I don't have a great name for this, but I'll put it in quotes and call it cloud, so that we can understand that we think there's something distinct going on here that's different than what this shared configure-to-order delivery model, whether in your own environment or external environments, about. I left this gap to try to indicate that there's something important that you have to add to get from this world to this world. And what's in this gap is software and system design. This world is all about running the traditionally designed applications that we all use to automate our existing business processes. This world doesn't go away. We think that there's different sourcing choices, there'll be different dynamics, but those applications and the automation of those business processes will be continued to be delivered in this form. But we think there's the opportunity to use technology for new purposes, to solve problems that have really been out of reach, that can't be solved easily in this environment, and that can be addressed easily here and cost-effectively here. But to reach these, you have to think about how you design your software and systems in very particular ways. I don't want to dwell on it, but to give you an idea of what those design concerns are, you need to design for scale independence, so you can satisfy demand at a cost that's consistent to low demands to arbitrarily high levels of demands. Unfortunately, most of those applications that run in our traditional environments are not implemented in a scale-independent form. You also need to think differently about the way you manage data. In this world, applications take in data, take in state, and store it in a form that's private to the application, which means to use that data for some other purpose, you have to integrate with those applications, which is complex and expensive. And in this world, instead, you leave the data outside of any service that wants to act on it. The data model expects that many different pieces of functional capabilities will access and manipulate that data over time. And so you design in that anticipation and avoid the complexities and expenses of application integration. Finally, you have to think about the way that you deliver user experiences in a different way. And so this concept of Web 2.0 user experiences shows up significantly in how you design the services that are implemented in this cloud layer. But what's exciting from our perspective is that these design approaches delivered in this form allows us to go beyond simply automation of business process, and instead to think about how we can use technology to facilitate interactions, to think about the way that you interact with your customers, with your suppliers, with your partners, the ecosystem in which you generate value. And being able to coordinate those behaviors is a huge opportunity to create more value for your customers, to create more differentiations for your offerings. But to do that effectively means you have to move beyond simply being able to automate your business processes. As you start those kind of complex interactions, you can't make people do things the way you want. And instead, you need to think about it as automating the conversations, the dialogues that you have in that extended ecosystem. So let me end with that. Again, my apologies for not being able to be there with you. I'm sure it's going to be a rich and productive event, and I look forward to the opportunity to meet and interact with you in the future. Thank you.